What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Carpool Gaming. This is a special edition of the PlayStation Drive for our Spider-Man 2 review. My name is Matt, and I'll be your driver for this fantastic web-swinging adventure. I'm joined, as always, by the Supreme Court of Canada himself. Court Lalonde, what's up, Court?
Hey, not much. I was on the ice today. That was very nice, but I'm very excited.
Very nice.
Nice. Okay. Anyways, I am excited to talk Spider-Man. It's been a while, and this time I actually can talk to Steve. We've been conversing back and forth for a couple weeks now, and he's actually just tiptoed around the game. He hasn't given anything away, but now I get to ask him questions, and he's going to answer. We will not be doing any spoilers. There's no spoilers that are going to come. Nothing like that. We're just going to talk about combat, the gameplay, and stuff that happens in the game. That's how we're going to do it.
Yeah. And of course, we have the homie, one of the best people out here on this World Wide Web, the tech with the specs himself, Mr. Steve McBarry. What's up, Steve?
Very excited to be here talking to you guys about Spider-Man 2. I know, Court, I've had many a jabs to you. You've been a great sport for so long about this. So we're finally getting to the finish line. I'm finally able to talk about the game, and I couldn't be more excited to talk about the game with you two fine folks.
Yeah, so just for full transparency, Court and I haven't played the game yet. We've had it for like 6 months now. We've just been waiting. We've just been waiting for the right time to start playing it. Steve got it a little while ago. Steve, how much of the game have you played? Let's kick things off. Like Court mentioned, there's not going to be any spoilers, anything. We'll talk about Steve's thoughts and feelings, but we're going to stay very spoiler free. Steve, how much of the game have you played?
I've beaten the game. I've platinumed the game. I've rolled credits. I've done all the things in the game. It took me about 30 hours, maybe just 30 to 35 hours. I don't know the in-game clock. I don't have it next to me, but it's a fully obtainable platinum. It's a very modest sized game, in my opinion. I think in the year 2023, when you got games 100 hours, 120 hours, this is a great, tight experience, in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Is there one trophy that was a pain in the butt?
No, not really. I think like a lot of them, are story focused, collectible focused. Like it's basically do 100% of the game. I would say maybe the one that is a bit more grindy or difficult to get is probably getting enough tech parts to unlock all the different suits. That's probably the only one where by the end of the game, I had finished all the side content, all the story content. I was like, oh, well, now I got to go and just kind of hit up all these different boxes around New York City in order to get my last, like maybe 4 or 5 suits.
Okay, so it feels great. So what I need to know then, Steve, I want to kind of kick things off. Obviously, Spider-Man coming from Insomniac, the first one was a massive surprise and a huge hit, quickly followed by Miles. Again, 2 back-to-backs that were some of the best superhero games that we've seen thus far. How does Spider-Man 2 stack up to what came before?
I think it does an incredible job of bouncing off of what Miles Morales kind of teed up for Insomniac Games. I think depending on what you're looking at, whether or not it's like length or scope or anything like that, I think you can look at it from 2 different ways. In terms of the scope, this is the biggest Spider-Man game that Insomniac Games has made. I mean, you're putting, virtually Peter Parker and Miles Morales together, doubling the size of the world, bringing in all these new villains and everything. So it's a huge game in that regard. But then when you look at some stuff like, well, Miles Morales kind of reeled in the experience compared to the original Spider-Man. It knocked out some of the busy work. I think in this one, I found Insomniac Games kind of falling back into bad habits, in my opinion, where it was kind of like, oh, well, it's a 2. It's Spider-Man 2. It's a sequel. It's a full price game. We have to justify the length, the scope of the game and everything. So I found that some of the supplemental content, just a few things here and there, I wasn't 100% down with. I don't want to get into like spoiler territory of what those things were, but some of like the pinpoints on the map, I was like, I'm kind of done with this. Maybe I could have done with maybe shave off 5 hours of this game. It would have been perfect, but I totally understand why Insomniac wanted to give us more rather than less.
Now, what if there's a lot of changes to the combat system, there's a lot of changes to the traversal. Between the two of them, what do you think was the most innovative compared to Spider-Man Remastered or Miles Morales?
That's a great question because yeah, they do so much in both regard, whether it's the combat or the traversal. I would say traversal is probably the shining beacon of this game. So one of the things I love about this game is that because of it works fully well with the PlayStation 5, it utilizes that SSD. You can actually, once you unlock enough stuff on the map, you can actually fast travel anywhere on the map. You just select wherever your cursor is on the map, hold down the button, and Spider-Man will come swinging through, or Miles Morales will come swinging through. That being said, though, I rarely use that feature because traversal is so damn fun in this game that you're using the web wings, you're adding that momentum with the swings, you're slingshotting yourself off a building. It's like this game is a legit like the best playground in my opinion as far as like a superhero game goes. I just felt like Spider-Man, I felt like Peter, I felt like Miles Morales the entire time, that I never wanted to use fast travel. I never wanted to break away from getting from point A to point B and just swinging my way there or zipping my way there using the wind tunnels and stuff like that. That being said, though, I mean, they do a great job of combat enhancements as well. I mean, there's new skill trees, new abilities, and everything like that that you can unlock. But I would say traversal is where it's at.
So, because I'm kind of curious, because obviously, like, I'm always nervous whenever we start talking about web wings, just because I feel like when you're talking about Spider-Man, like the swinging is such a fundamental part of the gameplay. Like that was one of the major things that I loved about Spider-Man and about Miles is just how good the swinging, how the traversal felt. And I was a little bit nervous that introducing the web wings would almost take away from the swinging. How do those two systems kind of balance each other out? Did you feel like that they kind of came together very symbiotically?
I like that. I love that. Yeah, because it's very complimentary. I myself, the first time I saw it in the trailer and they show the web wings, I was like, that it kind of feels like it takes away from the swinging. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's what you want from a Spider-Man game, right? But no, it's completely complimentary. They're basically like two. It's the gif of the two like big jack dudes like holding hands and everything. It was like, oh man, like once you get into the rhythm of it, of being like, okay, I'm going to swing off this building, hit that height, hit the web wings, kind of start coasting. Oh, there's a wind tunnel over there. Take that. That's going to take you. That's going to propel you. Then you can swing off that, do a couple of tricks, and like it all flows so fluidly that I think it's a really shining example of what Insomniac can do to like elevate that gameplay experience.
Now, you mentioned the last time we were on here talking about this game after you had your first time ever playing it, how it was just an instant switch between Miles and Peter. Now, when you're using either Miles or Peter, does the combat, besides their special moves, do you feel that the characters are different? Is there a way Insomniac actually makes them different other than their special moves that they have in combat?
Not really. It's kind of more I mean, definitely cosmetically because of the different suits. But no, it is very much the combat definitely is the differentiating factor there. And then also, I mean, the dialogue
So
there.
they don't have like a unique swing or anything that's unique just to them besides their costume?
No, and part of me is kind of, I don't know, laments the fact that they added Miles's style and tricks. Peter can now do them as well.
Oh,
And I
yeah, I don't
thought,
like that.
I get why they do that. I get it. I get why Insomniac wanted that parity between the two, just because it's a gameplay feature and it would kind of feel weird if Peter didn't have that. But at the same time, I was like, that's Miles. And that was that like defining feature. That was his thing. When you're swinging around, you can do like the little tricks, you can do backflips and all that. So no, there isn't that much, but there's enough that when you're playing, you're like, okay, this is the Peter time. This is Miles Morales' time. It's kind of just get your feet wet and kind of get in there. But both are equally as fun. I don't think that either one takes away from the other, if that makes sense.
Did you, just to follow up, did you use one more than the other?
Ooh, again, that it comes down to costumes and all the suits, man. Because once I unlocked like a suit for say Miles, I was like, that's a fire suit. I love how hard Insomniac went with some of these suits. I would stick with them, and then I would go to Peter once I unlocked that one. But to be honest, there are very specific gameplay pass down the gameplay that make you switch between the two. Exactly. Pass the baton to the other, whether it's a major story beat or some of the side stuff is locked to one or the other. But if you're just out there swinging around and kind of just freestyling it, for me personally, I just kind of went with whatever suit is speaking to me at the time.
So we've covered some of the gameplay, we've covered some of the traversal. I have to ask about the story. Obviously, we're not going to get into spoilers. We're not going to talk about anything specific, but like Insomniac's Spider-Man and Miles Morales has two of like my favorite video game stories ever, especially Spider-Man, like Spider-Man Remastered. The way that game ends and especially that final act of the game is just next level. Coming into Spider-Man 2, I feel like the cross that it has to bear is quite large, especially adapting stuff like Craving, adapting stuff like Venom and the symbiote. These are very, very giant, very classic, very Spider-Man-esque things that we've seen in some regard, in some way, shape, or form over the last couple decades. How do you think the story lands? Do you think it balances all these elements out? What did you think of the story?
So I think that the game is basically broken up into 3 major acts. Unsurprisingly, a lot of great stories are. That being said, I think that the first act really does a lot to kind of it's all set up. You're dealing with 2 different characters. They're introducing not only their Spider-Man sides and or what they're trying to accomplish, but also their personal lives. What Miles is doing, he's still a kid. He's writing his college papers, his application papers. Peter's, still grieving with stuff that happened in the first game. Don't want to spoil it for everyone out there.
Yeah.
But that being said, like they're dealing with a lot of different things. It isn't until I think Act 2 when the game like hits its stride, is like, boom, here we go, we're full trajectory down the main path. We're doing a lot, and I'm kind of with you, Matt. I'm a Spider-Man fan since the day I was born. I came out of the womb a Spider-Man fan, fling my webs around. Yeah, exactly.
That would be very awkward for your mother.
Well, you know what? She had to deal with it.
Umbilical cord everywhere.
Like he's just coming out,
just swinging at the doctor.
Yeah.
Swinging at the doctor. That is a visual for all you out there. You're welcome. No, but to be honest, by the time we get to the end of the game, I was like, this game includes some of my favorite pieces of Spider-Man content and lore that I think I've ever experienced. From games, comics, movies, I've been in Spider-Man and transmedia my entire life, and this shocked me, this surprised me, this hit home, and like emotionally there's definite payoffs. I think though some fans, some players might just have that kind of urge of like, okay, let's hit the gas a little bit during Act 1 because it is a slower start. But once you hit Act 2, get into Act 3, it's full momentum. It's everything that you wanted out of the story. And I will say, everyone out there that thinks that they're prepared for Venom, they don't know shit. Venom is coming. Tony Todd kills it. He steals the show every single time that Venom is there. His voice, his stature, the scale that they play with Venom, like the recent trailer that they had where you actually see like the scale of Venom compared to Peter and
19 inches, baby.
That was just like a taste. That was just a taste. Like once you get into the game and you see oh my God. Woo.
So a quick follow-up. Sorry, Cord. I'm going to slide in here with one more quick thing. How do you feel the game balances both Spider-Man? Because obviously with the first one, we had a very Peter-focused story. With Miles, it was obviously very Miles-focused. How do you think the game balances? Is this a Peter-first story with Miles as secondary, or is it a good balance between the two? How do you feel about the balance between the characters?
Again, that's a great question, because I think I would say the first half, Miles kind of feels secondary, and that really bummed me out, because in my adult age and everything, as I grow up more and more, I adore Miles. He's now my Spider-Man. So seeing him kind of take the back seat a little bit, I was like, oh man, like I get it. It's a Spider-Man 2, the series started with Peter and everything. That being said, though, I think that by the time we get to, the second half of the game into Act 3, Miles does a lot of catching up and he becomes like the focal point of the game. And I was like, oh, I guess it was a slow burn for Miles, whereas with Peter, I mean, we see it in the trailers. He's got the symbiote suit. We know kind of like the arc that Peter is going in, for instance, in comparison to Miles. But by the time we get to, the downward arc that it's going into the end there, Miles's story just pay off tenfold. And I was like, oh, I love where they end with this character. Like they didn't do him dirty. I'll say that. They did not do Miles dirty whatsoever, and I'm so happy for that.
Now, you've played all 3, so you actually I technically 4 when you think about it. You had Spider-Man, then you had Spider-Man Remastered. So you platinum both of those twice, and then you platinum Miles, and now you platinum that. Which one do you think had the most consent and well thought out story now, that if you compare all of them, because they all have phenomenal stories, and even though Miles is a shorter game, it still packs a lot. Do you feel there was parts that were, you said in Act 1 that it was a little bit drawn out and might have, been a little bit bloated there? For which one do you think had the more impactful story, I guess is the question.
Oh man. I don't want to get into Spider-Man 2 only because of like recency bias. My knee-jerk reaction is still Miles Morales because the ending of that game is just incredible. I got chills. I got the emotional, all the emotions in that final little bit of that game. But I could see there being an argument that Spider-Man 2 tops that in some ways, because again, the ending of this game, and just the arc both characters take in unison is really impactful, especially again being someone who grew up with Spider-Man my entire life. But yeah, I'm not confident. I can't say it confidently yet.
So what I wonder then is you've kind of alluded to the fact that it took you somewhere, around 30 to 35 some odd hours to platinum the game, and you felt that it was a little bit padded when it came to just some of the side stuff. I feel like I personally really enjoyed the side content in both Spider-Man and in Miles. I felt that it was almost like Ghost of Tsushima for me, where I enjoyed every piece of content that I had in the game. But I'm also aware that there was a lot of the criticism that was leveled at both of those games was the side content, that it didn't feel like it mattered enough, that it wasn't fun enough. How did you feel the side content as a whole compared to what we got before?
I see. Again, I think Miles perfected it, where I think that all of its side content was impactful to the story. It was complementary to the overall game experience, and it didn't overstay its welcome. Here, I think that they do a very good job. I think that the game has like side missions, like quote unquote side missions. Those are mandatory. Do not skip those. Those are like, they have like some really great story and character interactions there. It comes down to like, the Ubisoft checkbox kind of thing, where it's like, okay, here's all the districts. Here's what all the districts have. Thank God that none of the, the crimes, the crime activity things return, and they're mandatory. They're all just like pushed off to the wayside. I was so happy. Yeah. Because that was, I think, one of the most glaring issues with the original Spider-Man. So they're still there. You just don't have to do them. They're basically there just for tech parts for suits and stuff. But all of like the ones with the symbols, I think for the most part, Insomniac nailed it with the side content. There's just like one or two activities there where I was like, we could shave off half of these and this would have been perfect, because by the time we get to the end of the story and you're opening up the entire world, it's like the story's over. Now it's Peter and Miles are just doing their thing, and it's like, oh, well, why am I doing these mundane kind of tasks? It just, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the time and place I was in right now playing the game. I'm sure there will be a lot of people that are like, yeah, I just want more content. Give me more content. But for me, it's quality over quantity in my opinion, and I feel like Insomniac just kind of threw in a little too much for my personal taste.
Now, you've mentioned that Miles seems to you seem to favor Miles, and I know I do too. I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet, but Miles as of right now is my favorite of the games so far. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that Insomniac will be better off in the future, even though Spider-Man's this, 30 to 35 hour game to platinum, doing these smaller bite-sized things. We just recently had it with Assassin's Creed Mirage over on the Ubisoft side. We've had Miles Morales. We've seen success in these type of games. It's very interesting at the beginning of the generation and last generation. Everybody was like, I want these longer games. You make me pay for this game and it's not long enough. But it seems that when we're reviewing these games, we end up liking the game that isn't as long. Now, do you think with this franchise, and what, I'm not saying what's coming, but how this could go, do you think that it would benefit from these smaller games, or do you want these larger games?
At this point, I really don't know, because there are so many questions, and I'm not even talking like story stuff. There are so many questions as to like what Insomniac's plan is moving forward. I mean, we know we got Wolverine coming up. We don't know the scale of that game. And to me, at least coming out of this game, I thought this was a great use of New York City, adding Queens of Brooklyn in, but I just don't know how they could do it a third time. So to me, it just feels like, okay, we've gotten New York so many times, we've gotten this setting. Even if we do a side game again, whether or not, Miles Morales 2 or whatever, it's just like, okay, we've been here before. We've done this so many times. How about we just take a complete shift? And at that point, if we're, moving Peter and Miles to like San Francisco or something, I don't think that warrants a smaller game. I think that's Spider-Man 3 if you're going to relocate them or something like that. So really at this point, I feel like I would almost prefer them just to withhold everything and concentrate on a big third game splash, wrap up the trilogy, focus on Wolverine, bring in Daredevil if you want to do like another superhero game set in like New York City or something. No, I won't do it. I won't do it.
No, but Steve is right here. Steve is right here. If we get a Spidey and Daredevil team up game, I'm gonna freak.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if they want to do something else, let them do something else. But I think that the the interstitial game, I think, is best left alone at this point. We've gotten Spider-Man, like Peter Parker and Miles Morales already introduced and everything. Let them exist in their own shared world at this point. Insomniac has proven they can handle both characters at the same time. In my opinion, let them just go on and do other things unless it comes to Spider-Man 3.
Now, you just mentioned how you didn't want to be in the same city. Does it feel the same? We've already done New York twice. This will be the third time going through New York City. Does it feel familiar, or are there new areas or the way they've designed it, making it look different?
Well, I mean, Manhattan's Manhattan. They haven't really changed anything. But adding Queens and Brooklyn, they are very distinctive locations in their own right. I mean, you got Coney Island in Brooklyn, you got suburban houses and stuff like that over in Queens. So I think that while Manhattan does feel like home, if you've played Spider-Man and Miles Morales, it's the new locations that kind of stand out the most. At least in my opinion, they're the most unique to the game, obviously, because it's the third time we're existing in this area that now you get two different boroughs. You're like, oh, what over there? I want to check out all these little Easter eggs and see what's over there.
You mentioned the houses. How do we swing?
It's honestly,
it's just going into the air.
It's kind of the homecoming thing, in Spider-Man Homecoming. You get that joke where he goes and tries to, and it doesn't work. But in this one, it does. Like, I mean, he's still, you're still swinging just from like a lower area. That being said, though, I mean, there are very many ways to like propel yourself up and then kind of get that height advantage and then find, wind tunnels and stuff like that to keep yourself up there.
So something that I wanted to ask as we kind of head towards the conclusion of this conversation, I want to know a little bit about the Rogues Gallery without spoiling anything. And I don't even want to talk about the latest trailer in case anybody is on media blackout at this point and they're not even watching the launch trailer, which, as we discussed before recording, does spoil a villain. Do we have more of, did you feel satisfied with the Rogues Gallery that we got in Spider-Man 2? Because I feel like in the first game, again, people wanted more. People wanted more of the villains and the side content. Did you feel satisfied with the Rogues Gallery in Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, Oh, big time. I was a little worried, to be honest, because I mean, Spider-Man 1, they brought out Sinister Six, they brought out like the rogues gallery of Spider-Man. So coming into this one, I was like, okay, we got Kraven, we got Venom. Like, who else is there? Who else can really like pack a punch to, you know, Vulture, Electro, Doc Ock, stuff, like the mainstays. And in this one, I was like, oh, you guys are doing this. Oh my God, you guys are doing this? Okay. Oh. And it's not even the surprises of their inclusions, it's the surprises of what they're doing with these characters. I think that it surprised me the most. I mean, at this point, I think we all know Insomniac Games doesn't just like to copy and paste what we've already seen. It's let's remix it. Let's add some new texture to a character. Let's add some new texture to a backstory or how they're being implemented in this world. And I think this game, in my opinion, does the best of taking a character that we already know from other pieces of transmedia, spinning them in a way that's unexpected and making it pay off in such a way that longtime fans like all of us here and lots of audience members are going to say, wow, I did not expect this whatsoever.
Okay, that is what I wanted to hear. I have one question left in the hopper. I'll use that to close us out. Court, do you have anything left in the tank before we kind of end off this conversation?
No, I don't. To me, right now, I've heard enough that all I do is want to play it. I think Steve's done a phenomenal job of just not destroying the excitement of. It's almost like this game is like Christmas, and you don't want to ruin Christmas. So it's just, I think we've danced around enough to not spoil anything, even for myself who hasn't played it yet.
Okay, perfect. So then I'm going to change it. I have two questions left then. Is this a game of the year contender / a contender for best superhero game? I got to know.
Oh man, this year is so good, Matt.
I know.
This game is good, but yes, I think it's a contender. It's not a winner.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that. I mean, this year is way too good, and to be honest, I think that Insomniac Games doesn't usually aim as high as to go for like, oh, let's go game of the year. They're usually like, let's go and deliver consistency, and I think this is consistent to everything that Insomniac has ever made. Although I will say that I think, in my opinion, this is their best game yet, just in terms of being a marquee PlayStation 5 title. I think this checks all the boxes off for me. Is a little more bloated than I would have liked it, sure, but I think in terms of quality, this game knocks it out of the park. But I think that 2023 is too good of a year for even Spider-Man 2 to really be a winner. But I think it's within the conversation of a nominee of being one of the 6 at Jeff Keighley's Game Awards.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. And my final question will be one I've already asked you, but if you had to describe Spider-Man 2 as a pizza, how would you describe it?
Oh, baby, there ain't no pineapple on this bad boy.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I'm talking about. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure rocking with you. If people wanted to see and hear more from you, where could they find you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, first off, thank you guys for taking the time to speak with me. I've been chapping at the bit to get out there and talk about Spider-Man, so it's just a pleasure.
I'm well aware, Steve.
You guys. Yeah. It's been so hard not to
literally in like 10 hours of driving. He's just like, never mind. I'm like, oh God,
can't talk about it. Sorry, Court. Oh, are you playing it yet? Oh, sorry, I can't talk about it. But I have a bunch of Spider-Man 2 content coming out this week. My review is already up on the Creature Cast, which you guys can hear more in-depth discussions and conversations about this game over on Creature Cast. But I have more stuff on the go. I can't talk about it just yet, but you can keep up with me everywhere online at SVicVari.
Yes, make sure you go check out all things Console Creatures. You'll find me in Court there as well. Because again, I'm sure there's even more coming. The Creature Cast, the Console Creatures, all this good stuff. Court and I will obviously be talking about it as soon as we physically can. We're going to be talking about it. So make sure you stay locked and loaded. Court, where can people find you?
You can find me at Courtland on Twitter, because I'm just never going to let that one go. Or you can find me on Console Creatures. Also, you can find me every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on 3 Dads and a Console.
Go check Court out and all the places. As for myself, you can find me over here on the PlayStation Drive each and every week and on X at Matt_SilverSoul. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below. Is Spider-Man 2 a day one for you? Because we need to know. We'll see you guys on the show very soon. Peace.